Well, welcome back to the Reality Halfway House. Today we're going to be talking about Trump and Morty, time traveling with George Washington and JFK. We are caught between worlds. This is the Reality Halfway House. I'm your host, Jones Nelson. Well, it's been kind of a busy week in Washington, D.C. Very busy week if you want to get into ruffled feathers and time traveling and all kinds of stuff. Of course, the White House and Trump posted a video this week, and unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen this video. This is a screenshot from it. President Trump and J.D. Vance and Rick and Morty's spaceship. I don't even know what that is. I guess it's a spaceship. I watched Rick and Morty for the first couple of seasons, and then it kind of got, I don't know, it's kind of like Family Guy. It got to the point where it was so, I don't know, it was kind of, I couldn't stomach it anymore, if that makes any sense. But a lot of interesting things in this video. I mean, you've got people all over the internet dissecting it left and right. You've got the far left that are saying, "Oh my gosh, it's so gross. They should sue him." And then on the far right, they're like, "Did you see this? He meant this and that and the other." And you got to look and it's like, dude, I don't know, man. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. You know what I mean? Sometimes a Rick and Morty spoof is just a Rick and Morty spoof. However, there are some definitely interesting things in there that I think you'd be remiss to ignore. One of the most notable spots in there, and I didn't grab a screenshot of it, but again, like I said, the video is all over the place. You've probably already seen it, and if you haven't, you can just YouTube it. But there's a spot where Chuck Schumer is in the Senate, and I can't remember if he reaches up and pulls it off, or his face comes off, and it reveals like a robot underneath it. So I don't know. It's very interesting. It's really hard to see or to really understand, kind of what they're trying to get at. It's cryptic, nevertheless. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And then, not dissimilar to the actual Rick and Morty intro, they have a like a monster at the end that eats the ship, or whatever. In this case, it's a dragon, which I think was also interesting because the Bible talks about dragons. And then, of course, dragons are all throughout the zeitgeist of historical lore, So, I mean, you see that all throughout. And we're starting to see more and more evidence to there actually being dragons somewhere in history, whether they were killed off or whatever. Again, lots of this is speculative, but I'm starting to see more and more, and people are starting to kind of talk more and more about this topic, and so I think it's important for us to be able to kind of take a look at it. But I thought that was interesting this week. They were busy, to say the least. Earlier in the week, and I think timeline-wise, I can't remember. This is, let's see, July 26th. I think they dropped this before Rick and Morty. Don't quote me on that. But it was Trump posted this picture with him and JFK standing in front of the White House, which is interesting because obviously, well, I say obviously, the world's getting so weird, it's hard to say. But I will say, for the sake of YouTube and everything else, that obviously this is AI. But there's so much information coming out about Trump, and so much speculation coming out about Trump in like time travel and portals and all sorts of kind of stuff. The Ingersoll Lockwood, Baron Trump, talking about the time-traveling Baron Trump. It came out in the early 1900s, if I'm remembering correctly. The Last President, I believe, was the other book. And it all talks about basically time travel and the Trumps. And it's very interesting. You had another image that he posted. It was like a movie poster. And if you're listening, you can look all of these up if you're listening on the podcast. It's basically a picture of President Trump with a cape, and he's got Mount Rushmore in the background, and then there's helicopters, and he's got George Washington by the hand, and George Washington's hanging off the side of a cliff, and he's pulling him up, and the caption says Trump Washington, a time travel epic. And it's like, but why? And then up in the sky, there's a giant portal with like a clock in it. So again, it begs the question, what the heck is going on? For the leader of the free world to be posting some of this stuff is just freaking bananas. Like, why would you even do that? It's such an interesting time because, you know, earlier this summer, this summer he was posting those like pictures of him walking with the gray aliens. He also posted a picture of him with the Nordics, like the tall Nordic aliens or whatever. There's so much stuff, dude. There's so much with all this, and then the alien disclosure and everything else, and it just begs the question: what the hell is going on? And you know, I don't have the answer to that. I was born and raised in Roswell, New Mexico, and you know, it's like I grew up around all this stuff, and I'm just like, this is getting even weird for me. But all that being said, you know, I follow a lot of the alternative media, just because I don't believe for one second that the mainstream media has any of our best interest in heart at all. I mean, clearly they're pushing an agenda. I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and it's like, at what point did it become, you know, accepted that you would just turn on the news and you know who the person voted for? At what point was that acceptable? You know, because when I grew up, you know, my dad was in TV, and for all of my childhood, you know, early childhood, he was the news director. So, I mean, he would go through and he would, like on the weekends, like Saturday mornings, he would go in early in the morning and set up the news and get everything ready for later on that day for the 5 or 6 o'clock news and then the 10 o'clock news, because they did every day. Like, as a young kid, I would watch Saturday morning cartoons sitting at the anchor desk. Like, they have the desk and then they got a little TV down in there so that the anchors could go through and see, you know, like what was on the screen behind them. And that, you know, it's like, it was just kind of cute. We couldn't hear anything, but suffice it to say is I grew up in the news, right? Like, I grew up with my dad that was like constantly watching and taking notes and making phone calls and everything like that. And so at the end of the day, you know, I have a very different, you know, kind of experience with it. That, and, you know, I've worked in radio for almost 28 years, and I was the news director for a while. So, I mean, my job was to go through and to seek out and deliver the news and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I just think that it's so important. And I always tried, whenever I was delivering the news, to be as completely unbiased and agnostic to any sort of like opinion as possible. Because I really saw that as my duty. My job is not color what I'm delivering, but rather to give people like the absolute bare bones facts and give them the opportunity to go through and make their own decision. That was my personal preference. Now we have podcasts and we have other things to where it's like it's kind of your own editorial, like a visual or audio editorial. So it's a little different now. But it's just, it has gotten to the point now with mainstream media, unless you've been living under a rock, to where it's like you automatically know, if I watch Fox, it's going to be right-leaning. If I watch CNN or any of the others, it's going to be left-leaning, you know, kind of a thing. And you've got some new up-and-coming guys. But again, it's all, you know, left, right, wings of the same bird. It's all trying to control a specific narrative and to keep people on. Trump posted something, I think it was yesterday. It was like yesterday, the day before. And he was talking about how a lot of these podcasters, you know, that are out there are just bought and paid for shills, you know. And I saw a post today, actually this afternoon, that was talking about one of the big ones, that's supposedly on the conservative side, supposedly a pro-Trumper. But they made a really interesting point, and I think this is important to consider as well, is that, you know, these people will amass millions of followers, and their channels are never taken down. And yet you'll have other podcasters that are really getting after it, and they're on their, like she was saying, she's like, I'm on my 40 or 50th TikTok account because I keep getting taken down. And, you know, I mean, I think, first of all, it's absolutely insane to me that accounts are getting taken down, period. Like, again, you look at our Constitution, and we're supposed to be able to say whatever we want as long as we're not inciting violence, you know, calling for harm, which, again, I firmly agree with. It's like you should not be doing that. But you should, in theory, be able to say whatever you want. You should have an opinion. You should be able to give that opinion. And, you know, here's the thing. if you're saying things and people don't agree with it, you need to be able to understand that you're going to take your comeuppance, you're going to take your licks for that. People are going, or like for example, you've got a lot of people on the internet now using racial slurs, and they're getting into those waters, and it's like, look, man, I'm all for your ability to say those things. I'm not going to stand in your way and say you can't, because I believe that you have the ability to do it. But you also have to understand that if you say those things, that there are repercussions for those things. And I'm not saying that there should be violence for that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you do say something that people disagree with, you have to be able to then go through and deal with the fallout of that. And that is how the First Amendment is going to work. It's going to give people the opportunity to speak their mind, but then you have to deal with the consequences and the fallout of doing that. People don't like what you say. People are going to go through and they're going to respond. It's kind of like the whole Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney, right? Isn't that what the name was? I think it was. Where everybody just boycotted Bud Light and they lost like millions and millions of dollars. It might have been in the billions, I forget, but they lost so much money because people were like, absolutely not. We're not dealing with that, And so that's how it is. But when you get these podcasters that amass millions of followers, they don't get blocked, they don't get banned, and I think it's important for us to start, really, well, not start. I think really and truly we should be doing this all along, but we're all in different stages of waking up, right? We need to be very cognizant of what it is that they're talking about and what direction they're trying to lead you. See, and here's the thing. I mean, I've been a DJ and an on-air personality for almost 30 years. I've been on the microphone since I was 15 years old. And so at the end of the day, it's like I've always tried to be, somebody that's right down the middle, like not trying to go through and push people one way or the other. I've not tried to push my beliefs or any of that kind of stuff on people. And even still to this day on the radio, I'm very agnostic. I'm very extremely down the middle. I don't go left, right. I mean, I don't even really go center. I try to keep things real. Hey man, we got the weather coming up this weekend. Let's talk about that. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's kind of lame that we have to be in that environment. But for the vast majority of people, the quote unquote normies, that's all they want. I got the movie Free Guy playing up here. I love that movie because it's talking about the NPCs and waking up. And we've done shows on the NPCs and are they real and this, that, and the other. And I'm telling you, I think that there is a lot of validity to that. I think that there are NPCs, whether they're real people that just haven't woken up yet. They're so consumed with the material in this life that they haven't really given thought to there being anything outside of it. And those people are still hanging on to every word that the news says. Well, if the news says, or if the doctor says, or if this says, then that's the case. It's like right now, if you look, I'm wearing these glasses. If you're listening, I'm wearing these basically blue blocking glasses. Not trying to be cool, not trying to copy other podcasters, but because I worked in finance for 20 years and had been staring at a screen, and my eyes, especially over like the last year and a half, have just been driving me crazy. I've got the eye floaters, and they're like super sensitive to light, and they'll tell you, I went and had the eye doctors look at it, and they'll tell you, say, well, you can't do anything about like floaters and other things like that. That's just how it is now. You're just old. You got old, man, and now you can't deal with it. And yet I'm still seeing a lot of different people online say, well, you actually can do things about it. I just went to the acupuncturist yesterday, and he said, dude, it's your liver, man. He said, you got to detox your liver. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So what is it? I'm like this forever, or there's actually a path to it. So that's what I'm getting at. It's like you can't really go through and say that it's one way or the other. But right now, so many different people are dealing with so many different things that we're not living a life like we're supposed to. I fail to believe God put us on this earth to just go through and work ourselves to absolute death and just suffer all the time. I know, don't get me started on the curse and everything like that out of Genesis. I get it. But what I'm saying is Jesus came to fulfill the law. and create a path to where we have the opportunity to move on. Now, he did say, we're just passing through here. So did Paul. We're just passing through here, that there's better things to come. But that being said, I think that we're completely in this. Yeah, we would be ignorant or remiss if we just completely just accepted the fact that, the way the lives that we're living right now are completely fine and normal. Again, when you come back here to the whole, like, what the president or the leader of the free world is posting, and flying around in a spaceship, it's kind of bananas to see this stuff, because it's like things are getting weirder and weirder, and I think it's on purpose. I don't know what's coming. We've done shows over the past, couple of months that have talked about some sort of a big impending event. We've postulated that, is it like the end of the world? Is it like an antichrist? Is it the rapture? Is it the reverse rapture? What is it? And then how does that event then go through and juxtapose or include the NPCs? Because are the NPCs people, like legitimate people, like human souls that have just not woken up? Or are they legitimately background code running in the background? You know what I'm saying? Because think about it like a video game, because I think about it like this all the time. I'm not a big video game guy. Like, I don't play a lot of video games, but, I have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they play video games all the time. And so, like, I'll play video games with them as just ways to kind of hang out, because, again, everything costs so much. It's like, I saw a meme the other day, and it's like me and my wife holding down the couch because if we leave, it's going to cost $200. It's like to the point to where it's gotten so bad that it's like, look, if we just want to go like have dinner and a movie, it's going to be $250. And I'm not talking like Morton Steakhouse. I'm talking like Applebee's and the movie theater. It's bananas to see and to think how crazy it has gotten out there. And so it's just cheaper to stay home. Anyway, I digress. I'm just bitter, I think, from that end. Because, back in my day, it's like we could actually go out and do things and survive. Anyway, whatever. But I wonder, though, coming back to the whole NPC thing and trying to tie it in with Trump and trying to tie it in with JFK and trying to all these different things that are coming out, I wonder if they're not trying to go through and jolt those sleepers, the NPCs that, maybe are living, breathing, I said vehicles, human beings, that just haven't woken up yet. That movie Inception, spoilers, it's like 20 years old at this point, but in the movie, in order to wake them up from the dream, they had to give them a kick. And in doing so, they'd have the music, they'd start playing the music in the real world, and they'd start hearing it in their other world to let it, in the dream state, to let them know that, hey, this kick is coming. And the kick is what I would describe the event that's coming. This stuff, is like the music playing in the background in my mind. In other words, Trump posing with, JFK, whether it's AI, or he's a real time traveler. I mean, whatever it is, I think this is the music that's playing in the background, and it's preparing us for the kick. And if you've gone down the Inception rabbit hole before and you're experienced, that the kick is coming. So if you're awake to all of it, that you're going to go through and experience something jolting that's going to yank you out of your dream state. That. But not dissimilar. So we talked about the Matrix in the last episode, and how, the blue pill and the red pill and what was worth it. Well, in the Matrix, if you start changing things, or you start going through and trying to move things around, the people, the NPCs, and you could say that they're people or NPCs, they're all plugged in, right? They're all people that are still plugged into the Matrix, completely oblivious. You could actually technically say that any one of those people is an NPC, right? Even though they're technically a living, breathing person on the other end of that cord, as it were. But each one of them that are still plugged in are susceptible to be overrun by the programming, right? Unless you've officially been unplugged. Well, in the Inception movies, if you want to draw a correlation there too, it's interesting because the all the background characters or quote unquote NPCs in the dream, they start to viscerally react when you start changing things within the dream. And so they start attacking you because they see it as like a virus, if you will, something along those lines. I forget how they describe it in the movie, but it's not all that dissimilar to what we see in the Matrix. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that that's what we're experiencing in this world. Because if you go through and you try to say something like, for example, well, if I went into my eye doctor and said, hey, listen, I was watching this thing, and if you put castor oil on and in your eyes, it's supposed to help, heal your eyes and your eye floaters. What are they going to say immediately? Absolutely not. Don't do that. Don't put castor oil on your eyes. Don't put them in your eyes. And I'm not telling you to do that. That's all on you. I'm just saying I've seen that. But if I were to say that to them, they would freak out about it. And they'd say, absolutely not. Don't do that. That's the dumbest thing you've ever done. When in reality, I've been putting castor oil on my eyes for like the last several months. I can't tell if it's doing a difference or not, or making a difference or not, but I've been doing it. And suffice it to say is I think that is the best definition, if we can actually come to one, of what an NPC actually is. It might be a human soul, but they're so caught up in this world and the materialism and maintaining a lifestyle that they really have lost perspective on, the truth and what's out there. And so at the end of the day, I think we have to be very patient with these people, and it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do because it's like, now, once you've woken up to the fact that like money is just, it's just a tool. It's not like something you should kill yourself over or unalive yourself for. I mean, it's just not worth it, I mean, we all got to eat. We all got to have a roof over our heads. We all got to do that stuff. But I mean, to go through and to sacrifice your entire life for it in the way that we have been, I think is something that we really need to come to terms with. And then the other side of that too is that, we're being lied to in every single corner. Like I said, you should question everything and do your own research, which is ironic. In COVID, for example, they were like, what are you going to do? Do your own research? Like, think about the visceral NPC reaction that you had then. Oh, he does his own research, so, he's not going to do it. You can't take ivermectin. You're taking horse dewormer and all these different things. It's like crazy. When they and I think a lot of this boils down to, and I know I'm all over the place today, man, you take a couple of weeks off and it's like you kind of get off your rocker. I'm just like Jeffy from the Family Circus. If you're my age, you know what that means. But it's like during COVID with the ivermectin, it's like as soon as people started taking ivermectin, they freaked out. The media freaked out, and they're like, "Oh, you're taking horse dewormer." They even attacked Joe Rogan, which didn't go over very well. And so I wonder though why they had such a visceral reaction to it. And my theory, and this is just a theory, but is based out of Matthew 17:21, which if you have like an NLV or a New Standard Version, you go to pull it up, it probably is not even there. It probably jumps from 20 to 22. It might be a footnote, and it might not even be in there at all. And I thought that was very interesting. Matthew 17:21. And it's where Jesus was, it's basically where the disciples tried to go through and cast a demon out of a little boy, and they couldn't do it. And so the father said, you know what? He went to Jesus and is like, dude, your disciples couldn't go through and cast out this demon. Like, what gives? I mean, he keeps throwing himself into the fire and the water. He's going to kill himself. Like, I mean, we can't have this. And so Jesus was like, oh my gosh. He got like pissed. Like, if you go through, he's like, how long do I have to be with you guys? Oh, you have little faith. You can read the story, but in my view, he was pretty frustrated with him. And so he cast the demon out of the boy and healed him. So then the disciples pull him aside later and like, hey, dude, okay, so you did this, but we tried everything you taught us to do, man. Like, I mean, we were doing what you taught us to do. I don't understand. Like, why couldn't we do this? And then Jesus talks about the parable of the mustard seed. And, like if you have the faith of a mustard seed, it all boils down to faith is basically what he's getting at. But he said in Matthew 17:21, he said, but this kind only goes out through prayer and fasting. So again, in your New Living Translation or NIV or whatever, I mean, there's several different versions of it. It pulls it out entirely. And it's like, well, why would you pull it out? Why make it in other words, why make it a footnote? Because in some versions, it will say verse 21 and put it down there. And I've read it. I've looked all into it. And they said, well, it's a translation issue. And it was the scribes and they were going through and doing it. And I'm like, okay, but like King James has it in there. Like, I don't understand what the issue is. If you're going to, like, why, I don't know. It just drives me crazy. It's almost like, and that's not the only verses that are removed. If you look, there's a whole bunch of them that have been removed. And if you're not just paying attention to, like, the verse numbers, you'll never even notice. And I just thought, that's super fascinating. This kind only goes out through prayer and fasting. Well, what is this kind? In some versions, in some verses, it says this kind of demon only goes out through prayer and fasting. Okay, well, so let's dig deeper. Because I've done fasting and I've done a lot of research on fasting. So it's like, well, what's the point? Like, why, what goes out with fasting? Well, when you fast, you get rid of all the material. Your body becomes extremely weak and you allow your body to get into autophagy. And autophagy is basically when your body starts like eating dead cells and cleaning itself. It's like, it's miraculous. I went on a 24-day water fast. I lost like 30 pounds. I mean, it's just, I was so weak, man. I don't know how to describe it unless you've done it. Like, it's a very spiritual and harrowing experience. But, and I know this is probably TMI for most people, but I mean, if you've ever done a fast or you're ever thinking about one, this is something that you need to prepare yourself for. During that time, I got rid of a lot of parasites. And I thought that was interesting because if this kind only goes out through prayer and fasting will go through and starve to death parasites that are inside your body, then maybe that's what they're talking about. I also find it interesting that Jesus started his entire ministry by fasting for 40 days. Find that interesting. Well, and if I forget, I saw somewhere with respect to parasites, it said if you're living and breathing on the earth, you're infested with parasites right now. It's like, and in the old days, they used to go through and detox people on a consistent, regular basis. I mean, the rabbit hole with parasites is phenomenally deep. And I didn't realize we were going to go this direction, but again, this is kind of like Sophie's choice here, man. We're just going down, we're rolling with it today. But with parasites, it's really interesting because if you look at the way parasites behave, parasites will go through and infect the host, and then they will control the host. Like, you can go through and do your own research on it, but there's extensive research to where in some cases, like toxoplasmosis is one, it comes from like cat feces and so forth, where it will change the mood, the aggression. There's some fighters that I've read about that, like down in Mexico, or South America, they will specifically go through and infect themselves with toxoplasmosis so that when they get in the ring, they become more aggressive. It inhibits like their fear responses and allows them to become more aggressive. It's pretty bizarre. So if you've got a parasite that can control the way a person thinks and behaves and acts, and during COVID, they're trying to go through and promote all this stuff, and people are like, well, wait a minute, we're getting rid of COVID with ivermectin, and then they're like, no, you don't want to do that. Well, what does ivermectin do? It's an anti-parasitic. So imagine for just a second if you had COVID when all that happened and a whole bunch of people went through and dewormed themselves and it like killed all the parasites in themselves, and suddenly they lost that thing inside of them that was potentially controlling them. Gee, do you think that maybe some of these people might start thinking for themselves? Because think about it this way. We know that demonic possessions exist, and we know that human beings are susceptible to demonic possession. Well, what if, and this is purely speculative in nature, but what if instead of possessing a person directly, right? Let's say you're born again. We're just cutting onions here. We're just talking. So if you yourself can't be possessed by, let's say, a demon, let's say you're somewhat immune from it. Let's say, you've been baptized or you've given your life to Christ, whatever, but you're infested with parasites. Let's say the parasites can then go through and be basically taken over by demonic presence. And that parasite can then go through and take over the body and control it. In other words, you're being controlled by proxy, if that makes any sense. It's like the proverbial hand up your back. They're not controlling you directly. They're having something else control you. If you've ever seen that movie, Being John Malkovich, it's kind of like that idea. It's like you've got something inside that's controlling you that is being controlled from something else, like a remote controller by proxy. It was just a thought that I had. I just find it super fascinating that they would remove that book from the Bible, or that verse from the Bible, in a lot of Bibles, and the ones that are really popular and prevalent in a lot of the big churches and so forth today. I just find that to be really fascinating. And I started making that connection a couple of years ago. But it's especially, I just find the fact that they're making such a big deal out of it, or they made such a big deal out of it during COVID, and suddenly all these people were like, heck yeah, man, I'm just going to go through and get rid of this. It's fighting COVID, and they're just detoxing all the parasites at the same time. I don't know, man. I just think it's something, that's a thread that deserves to be tugged on a little bit. And then now you've got all this stuff with the alien stuff that they're dropping out. And that's driving people crazy as well. Well, they need to sue them because they're doing Rick and Morty and they like all this stuff. And at the end of the day, I think, again, we need to look at it kind of pragmatically and say, okay, what is really happening here? And I think, again, my 2 cents, and it'll be an early show today, a light show today, but I think my 2 cents is that this is like the music playing before the big kick, before the big event, whatever that big event is. And it's coming in quick. The event is coming in quick. I saw a post today that said, and I thought that was super interesting. There's this guy that I follow, and actually, let me look him up really quick so you can give him a follow too. He's super cool. His name is Joshy Squatchy, which my studio is Alien Sasquatch Studios, so I got Sasquatch stuff all over the place. But Joshy Squatchy, you can find him. He's become like one of my new favorites. But he was talking a lot about like NPCs and other things like that as well. But I can't remember if he posted this directly, but it made me think of him. How about that? What he was how it worked was he drew the correlation between the flock cameras that they're putting up in all the major cities and actually even in the smaller ones. He said, do you think they call them flock cameras because they're taking pictures of all the sheep? Which I feel ashamed I didn't make that connection sooner. They're like, well, Jones, that's low hanging fruit, man. You should have gotten that one. But I saw a post today that kind of echoes that same sentiment that said, somebody said, oh, here, I'll just read it to you. I should have the screenshot, but I don't have it. It said, someone said all these cameras are so they can, or someone said all these cameras are so they can watch it all go down and watch us unalive each other live like the Hunger Games while they sit underground, and now I can't stop thinking about it. I think the flock cameras are super bizarre. I think the data centers are super bizarre. I think all this Trump, J.D. Vance, George Washington, JFK, all these things are super bizarre. The aliens, everything like that. And what I do know is that the more things that get bizarre, the more people pay attention. Again, I feel like this is the music before the big event. And maybe there is some validity to that. Because I was thinking about it. I was like, with those flock cameras in particular, I had this thought the other day. It's like, what if they're setting up the flock cameras so that whenever this goes down, that they're able to live stream whatever's happening? Because some of the prophets are saying that there's going to be, it's like the demons and all this other kind of stuff are going to be let out. And you've got 3 days of darkness and all this other kind of stuff, and you're not supposed to look outside. I mean, the rabbit holes go like crazy deep on these. And I was like, well, maybe they're doing that so everybody can see it. But maybe there is validity in that they're putting those up so that, they have a front row seat at basically the purge. Because if they cut off, let's say, for example, there is an EMP or there is some sort of a, I don't know, fill in the blank. It's something that disrupts the supply chain to the point to where people can't go through and actually, eat, or their banks get shut down. They can't get gas. It's going to get gnarly. It's going to get gnarly. And I think that we would be remiss and ignorant to think that something like that can't and won't come. And if you're not preparing yourself for some sort of an inevitability like that, to where at least, you got like a couple of weeks or a couple of months worth of food and water, I mean, I think you're kind of playing with fire. The Bible talks about the virgins and the lamps and keeping their lamps full. And it's like, when the time comes, it's like you don't want to be like, oh, I'm just going to run over there and go get some. It's like, what if you can't? It's the point is you need to be prepared for whatever's coming. And I think, again, Rick and Morty or Trump and Vance, here, Vancey, it's just the music playing. It's just the music playing like in Inception, letting us know that the kick is on the horizon. So something to think about there. So, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks since I posted. It's been kind of crazy at work and just crazy with everything else. The kids are going to be finishing up school here pretty quick and getting back into it. I know you're like, Jones, you still got your kids going to school. It's like, well, dude, I mean, honestly, if we could afford to homeschool and do that kind of stuff, we would absolutely do that. And we're working towards being able to do that. But that's a story for another day. Again, if you like what you heard today, give it a like and a subscribe. I'm just a regular guy, I'm not like here trying to get like crazy, views or, I'm not trying to do this as like a profession. This is just more of I've been doing radio for almost 30 years. And it's just, this is a logical next progression. But the longer that I do this, I'm hoping to go through and bring on guests and also bring on kind of a co-host. I'd love to be able to have a co-host. So if you like these esoteric topics, I'm talking to you, Joshy Squatchy. That'd be cool, man. We should do a show together at some point. But if you're interested in these types of topics and would like to, discuss putting together a show, let me know. You can find me at the realityhalfwayhouse@gmail.com. Just give it a like and a subscribe. And we will see you next time. We are caught between worlds. This is the Reality Halfway House.